Hello, my name is Adam Camilleri and welcome to episode 11 of Gaming Against the Grain. This is a Warhammer 40k podcast which tries to make uncompetitive armies work. An overview of today's episode, we will be covering listener questions, my usual 2 armies for review, recent occurrences in my life. So some shit has gone down, guys. It's pretty interesting. I'll let you guys know about it soon. I'll let you know about the army I took to a major event in Australia called Terracon. I will then be giving you a game-by-game breakdown of my event, how I did, and then an army list breakdown with my usual thumbs up, thumbs down, or Zangief score for each unit. And lastly, I'll give you my latest perspectives on the future I wish to take with this army, and anything I've learnt with what I want to do next. So, jumping straight in. Listener question from Shane Saunders, and he writes, "Hey Adam, with the new big FAQ, in regards to anti-deployment, are Scout Sentinels less of a must-have than they were beforehand? I've had mixed results since it was released and wondering what your thoughts were. Cheers." So with the FAQ coming down and lessening everyone's ability to smash your face in turn 1, people are working with the idea of switching lists up, which is only a good thing. There is a lot more freedom in design and concept now, so you're not restricted to having to have bubble wrap and screens, or zoning and denial units and bubble wrap. So getting into the nitty-gritty of that, due to the amount of armies able to smash your face top of turn 1 reducing greatly, I'd say no, you no longer need to have zoning units like Scouts and Nurglings and bubble wrap, so you no longer need both in my opinion. But I still think you should have one or the other. And that's simply due to both being very viable strategies in their own right, regardless of which army you're playing against. They're both good mechanics to have in your army and good ways to play the game. And especially if you are attending tournaments and you're playing 3, 5, or 8 games, the unknown is a big part of 40k, and being ready and able to adapt to the enemy is a massive boon. So in the case of Scout Sentinels and Imperial Guard as a whole, I'd say Scout Sentinels are far from a must-have now. This is mostly due to you having some infantry. So in just about every Guard army you take, unless you're taking like triple spearheads or whatever, you're going to have some infantry. And those guys are perfect bubble wrap. They're some of the best bubble wrap in the game. On top of that, they double move, and they actually end up being very fast. So even if you go second, your opponent still can't deploy in your deployment zone. You can't deep strike down there. So you can easily use those to zone off, which makes having zoning units in a Guard army less of a necessity. And that works for a lot of armies, like, Tau and Necrons and things like that. So which means you've got your bubble wrap covered already. Now, I used to use Scout Sentinels much more aggressively when I was playing Guard, and I haven't seen many other people do it this way. And I was using 3 units of 2 Scout Sentinels with heavy flamers, so it'd be 6 Scout Sentinels in units of 2 with heavy flamers, and they were great, fantastic units for destroying opposition zoning units. And they put a shitload of smiles on my face when I was playing against Eldar and Ynnari and stuff, because they'd move up that 9 inches. Then if I went first, they just walk right up to a unit of Rangers, blitz them. And then all of a sudden, I'm, deep striking my Scions really effectively. I'm pushing up the board really effectively with my infantry behind them. And yeah, it was just worked really well for zoning and bubble wrap at the same time. Now that sounds amazing. And for me, I think they're both fundamental tactics. Like bubble wrap and zoning are both fundamental tactics in this game. They are fundamental strategies. You just don't need both at the same time anymore. So a bit more list freedom there. And that's not just saying for Scout Sentinels. That's for everybody. If you want to take both, fucking take both. Like I said, there's still fundamentals of the game. Zoning off from your opponent's army and denying them the ability to connect with things that you don't want them to connect with in combat. So, pick one, pick the other, take both. I still think you need one of those though. Alright, that's it. I hope that helped Shane Saunders, and keep the questions coming, guys. Next up, my first list review. And this is written in by a gentleman named Bluey Tuo. T-U-O. Bluey T-U-O. Fair enough. Hi, I really like the podcast and your idea of need army, e.g. Black Templars. Making a lot of sense, Tuo. When I rejoined 40k 8th edition after Rogue Traeger back in the day, I decided pure Primaris Marines forces was the way to go. They were overcosted and under-maneuverable. I liked the idea of an uphill struggle. To give a boost, I took Raven Guard to add durability and get my guys up the board early. I usually play in 1500 point tournaments and would like your views. I have a 3k army in total, essentially one of every model in the vanilla Primaris range, so there's room for maneuvering, and I have painted them all now, so I can chop and change when needed. I also have a fluff history to my Emperor's Will company, but that would take ages to explain, and you may not read this anyway, so Fair enough. Well, let's have a gaze. So first up, he's got a battalion detachment. He has a Primaris Captain, Mastercrafted Stalker Bolt Rifle, and a Power Sword, which he says he's going to upgrade to the Burning Blade. Then he's got a Primaris Lieutenant with a Power Sword, 3 units of Intercessors. Each one has an Auxiliary Grenade Launcher, and just the standard Bolt Rifles and the Power Sword on the Sarge. Then he has 2 units of Aggressors, both 3-mans, one with the Bolt Storm Gauntlets and the Frag Storm Grenade Launchers, and the other one with the Flame Storm Gauntlets. Some of this new stuff just gets hard to pronounce. He has a Primaris Ancient, then with the, he says he's going to have the Standard of the Emperor's Ascendant, so we've already got 2 relics there. Then he's got an Inceptor Squad with the Assault Bolters and just a 3-man. And then he has a Spearhead Detachment with another Primaris Captain. This one's the Power Fist Plasma Pistol one, so that's a special edition dude. He looks really fucking cool. And then he's going to be paying for another relic because he says he's got the Armor and Dominus on this one. And then he has 3 units of 5 Hellblasters, 2 with the regular Plasma Incinerators and 1 with the heavy Plasma Incinerators. So this is a pretty standard heavy infantry Primaris list, lots of bodies, which is cool. Primaris is something I've been looking into heaps, guys, as a way of moving my army forwards. So this list has been a good opportunity for me to kind of get my hands around some of their tricks. First thing I thought of is Raven Guard being the best way of getting around the need for a repulsor. One of the major drawbacks of Primaris armies is they are inflexible with delivery methods. The only 2 really available to you if you're playing a pure Primaris list is repulsors, which are expensive transports, even if they do have a fucking shitload of DACA. Them being both so integral to the list for a delivery method, and also packing tons of fire means there is nothing else you can put on the board in a Primaris list to stop those repulsors getting absolutely pounded turn 1 every game, which is a really big issue for the army. So no matter what you've got in that Primaris list, if you take a repulsor, that repulsor is public enemy number 1 and will cop every single decent shooting option your opponent has, which is a real drawback to the army. There's no Rhino equivalent. You just got a Land Raider. It kind of sucks. So Raven Guard, as Blue has identified, is the best option to my mind. Now this guy has lots of relics in this army: the Burning Blade on the Captain, Banner of Emperor Ascendant on the Ancient, and Indominus armor on the Captain. This is overkill when you take into account that you're spending several CP to get things up the board with the Raven Guard strat already. So this army starts with 9 CP and will probably be around 3 CP at the start of the game, which means you lose out on one of the best Space Marine stratagems, that being changing your captain into a Chapter Master. And with your prevalence of Hellblasters, I think that strat becomes pretty amazing for you guys and for that army. With Primaris Marines, you really can't afford to have it all, unfortunately. They have 3 really solid units available to them: Aggressors, Inceptors, and Hellblasters, but they have an inability to get a critical mass of all 3 of these at once, especially at 1500 points, which is a huge drawback of the army list, and just by dint of them being so elite. So with this list, I've gone down the Hellblaster route, whilst trying to keep the Aggressors in play, as it works really well with the Raven Guard stratagem. They're fantastic use for that stratagem. So the changes are pretty straightforward, really, which is both a strength and a weakness of Primaris again. There just really aren't that many options to go through, so it's really just tossing up a few tech choices at the end of the day. So firstly, I would drop all the Power Swords from the Intercessors. They won't need them. Their job will be to hold objectives and really not do much else, as there is no other units that you have worth camping in a back line. And that's kind of a waste for an 18 point unit, so 18 per model unit, but unfortunately in a Primaris army, what else are you going to use to hold those 2 or 3 backfield objectives while you push up the board to get in good range with the rest of your stuff? I have, however, kept the Auxiliary Grenade Launchers in, because at one point they're actually a fucking bargain for what they do. They give you essentially a 30-inch range crack or frag grenade, so they're really good. Now the next change would be to flip the Flamestorm Gauntlets on the second unit Aggressors for Bolt Storms. Unfortunately, the Bolt Storms and the Frag Storm grenade launchers are just hands down better than the Flamers. With Raven Guard, on top of that, the 2 units of Aggressors are the prime candidates for the infiltration stratagem. And if you go first, they will be in range of the Bolt Storms and won't have to move, and they'll be able to fire twice with those, whereas the Flame Storms will have to move first turn to get into range. So obviously, using that stratagem, the Bolt Storms hands down become better in every way. Unfortunately, I'd probably drop the Inceptors altogether. They are a really kind of great unit, and in this army, they're kind of a flying company where you can just chuck them wherever you need them or to plug a hole. But like I said before, to get the most out of a Primaris army, you have to invest in one style, and simply due to the low model count, I kind of had to drop these guys, I thought. The next would be to switch the last unit of Hellblasters for regular Plasma Incinerators and take 1 unit and put it into a squad of 10. So now you have a full squad of 20 Hellblasters. The next thing, you'd spend 3 CP for the Chapter Master bubble, and then 1 CP for the Banner of Emperor Ascendant as your free relic. And then feel free to buy the Armor and Dominus for that Chapter Master Captain if you're worried about him dying or getting sniped. So now you have a really kind of dangerous rolling death blob with 40, strength 8, neg 4, 2 damage shots, rerolling to hit, rerolling once to wound from the Lieutenant, covered by the Banner to show shooting back on a 3+, and immune to morale. Your opponent has both this death squad to worry about and 6 aggressors infiltrating into cover, probably, with 2 wins each at 2 T5 and a 2+ save. At 1500 points, it's pretty cool that you can do both fun, and they'll end up being quite a dynamic army with the Raven Guard strat. So yeah, hopefully that expanded upon that concept you had. So now you have a full complement of 20 Hellblasters, so they can kind of address any issues you have. On top of that, the 2 units of aggressors being in range turn 1, and because you have a small model count army and a small amount of deployments, you'll usually get the +1. So hopefully those aggressors are shooting first and not before they get shot at in most games, which would make them really premium for clearing out any screens and any chaff that might get to your Hellblasters and tie them up or block them up. On top of that, those Hellblasters with all those rerolls, and then with the insurance from the Banner, so when those guys die, they shoot back, makes them quite effective. So hope that helped, Louis, and thanks for the write-in. It was quite a fun exercise. Okay, on to list number 2. And this is written in by a gentleman named Chris Hughes, and he writes, "Hi, we spoke yesterday about a review for my Thousand Suns army. I've attached a provisional list that I've been thinking about. I've only recently started this army, so pretty much everything's open to change. This list can be pretty fluffy, as I only play at my local club and it doesn't have the strongest meta. I would say the only must-haves in the army are Ahriman and some Rubric Marines. I realise the Rubrics may not be the most competitive, but I love the models. I love the fucking models too. I think they're incredible. I have included Demon Engines in the list, as I like the idea of the Sorcerers creating their own protection by binding demons. I'm not sure how effective they might be though. General idea behind the current list is to use the Helldrake's zooms forward turn 1 and engages an enemy, ties it up, and provides a distraction while the other units move forward, supported by Ahriman and the other Sorcerer on disc. Exalted Sorcerer not on disc is to sit back with a Forge Fiend, providing reroll 1s and buffs. Please feel free to change as much as you want. It would be great to have a 2,000 point list to aim for prior to expanding the army. Cheers, keep up the great work." Okay, we have Ahriman on disc, an Exalted Sorcerer on disc, 10 Rubrics with 1 Soul Reaper Cannon, another 10 Rubrics with 1 Soul Reaper Cannon, 19 Zangors, a Vortex Beast, a Helldrake with a Bale Flamer, and then, that was a battalion, by the way, and then the next bit is a Spearhead with an Exalted Sork on foot, a Forge Fiend, another Forge Fiend, and a Mauler with Lashes. So this is a pretty fluffy list, and something I really like about T-Suns is the dudes who play them tend to be great guys with heaps of interest in fluff and lovely looking models. And fuck knows G-Dub hasn't given you much else to be excited about for decades, so they tend to be pretty cool dudes, T-Sun players. So with this list, I did have some temptations to just gut it and completely rewrite it, but that's really not what I like to do with the list you guys send me. I like to give it some consideration and some thought, considering that is what you wanted to play, and that is why you sent it in to me, and that's why you typed it up. So I've done my best to just optimize what you've got here without fucking with it too much. Firstly, I'm not sure what relics you're taking, because they weren't listed, but I think the Dark Matter Crystal is pretty amazing, as is the Helm of the Third Eye, so I'd be taking both of those. One of those on the disc Sork and the other one on the foot Sork. Secondly, I've changed out the foot Exalted Sorcerer for a regular Sorcerer. It is kind of overkill having 2 of them, and although I do get that you get the reroll 1s, they can be pretty interchangeable, as you can just warp time the other one up to keep up with the rest of the blob and keep the second one on disc back. Alternatively, keep them both exalted and don't worry about it. Thirdly, I've combined your 2 Rubric squads into 1 squad of 20 with 2 Soul Reapers. This is to maximize their buffs from spells like +1 invuln, -1 to hit, and making them insanely hard to shift. And also because when you do that, they become the prime candidates for a Webway Strike stratagem. Deep striking 20 Rubrics into the middle of the board is a big play, and one that can swing a game really nicely. Next change was to drop 1 unit of Zangors entirely and put the second unit up to a full 30-man. and then add in 2 min squads of cultists. So that now in your troops choices, you have a unit of 20 rubrics with 2 soul reaper cannons, which most likely you're going to deep strike. A unit of 30 Zangors with a Bray Herd for the +1 advance and charge shit. And then 2 units of 10 cultists. So the extra points for that came from dropping the Vortex Beast, who, while fun as fuck and he opens up some amazing modelling options, is kind of not worth it, which is a bit of a shame. Now those 2 cultist units bubble wrap and hold backfield objectives. So they bubble wrap those 2 Forge Fiends and they hold backfield objectives for you. The max unit of Zangors is for using the Dark Matter Crystal on turn 1 and putting a big pile of fun into your opponent's face. You can either use these guys as sacrificial lambs to wall off your opponent's deployment zone, denying them the middle of the board so your rubrics get a safe drop right where you want it to be, or drop them in and try go for that 8-inch charge with the Brayhorn and get stuck right in. And just like the rubrics, these guys work amazingly well with some of the great buffs T-Suns have available. With the points left over from all that, I added in another Mauler Fiend to tie into your overall concept. So now you've got the rubrics, the Zangors, the Tunis Occultists, the Helldrake still in there. No Vortex Beast, but now you've got 2 Forge Fiends, 2 Mauler Fiends. Now, if you wanted to, you could easily drop both Maulers and replace them with 2 units of 6 Enlightened with Great Bows if you wanted to get more optimized, because that's quite a strong choice, and then you'd still have enough points for the Shaman for aura buffs for them. I like the style of T-Sun's list, but unfortunately I have nowhere near enough unit options for my liking. But what they have is a very specific set of plays that can be really fun and quite flexible. Like the Dark Matter Crystal unit, you can do so many things with that unit. You can string it across 3 objectives in the middle of the board, and then when your opponent shoots and kills that, you just drop the rubrics in and do exactly the same thing, and just see if they've got enough time to chew through both while they're +1 to hit and -1 to hit and +1 invulnerable save. Same thing goes for the Maulers. Like if you drop those Zangors and tie up a couple of the things that can kill the Mauler Fiends, those Maulers are going to punch right through shit, like without stopping, like just a couple of fuck machines with no brakes. They're going to be good. So I hope that helped, Chris. And yeah, keep the list coming in, guys. If you would like a list reviewed by me, please email it through to gamingagainstthegrain1@gmail.com. And please attach a paragraph with your list describing what you want me to look at and any criteria you want me to meet. So moving on from that, we are up to some recent occurrences in my life. Now, I told you guys last episode that I was back from my little hiatus after my relationship breakup, and content would be coming in thick and fast and all this other stuff. And so I think that was released on a Monday or Tuesday. And so the Wednesday following that, I actually got into an altercation at work. I got assaulted by 6 men, and I suffered a broken jaw. So that's part of my work, guys. I work with offenders. I go in and out of a couple of prisons, and I put myself in some situations where I can, hopefully help some people. But sometimes, things don't go that way. Suffice to say, not being able to eat, let alone talk for an hour straight, put me out of sorts to kind of do a podcast episode. So it's been a pretty fucked couple of months for me, guys. But I'm on the mend, and things are just starting to come good again. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on how I'm going, because it's been a fun fucking 3 months, I can tell you that. All right, on to the good stuff. Terracon. Terracon is a 2,000-point 5-game event held in a little country town in South Australia. It's amongst the biggest, oldest, and most well-respected events in Australia, and always brings a big crowd. Last year, I was lucky enough to take away first place this event with, I think, around 90 players, and I was running a guard list in the last major 7th edition tournament in the country, and it was the culmination of 2 years of work trying to make a guard list work in that edition, and I was on top of the fucking world that weekend, guys. Like, it was like I'd made it, I'd worked my ass off to try and optimize and get a guard list to work enough that it could bridge the gap between, some of the fuck Death Stars and stuff out there, and the Terracon, I managed to do it, and it felt amazing, and that's what I'm trying to recapture. I'm trying to get that feeling back again, that level of excitement, and just the thrill of trying to push my limits and push the limits of what I can do with a list. The format for this year was straight ITC with the ITC missions, but with the big caveat of no Forge World. This was a really big issue for me and many of my mates. I've spent a lot of time crafting lists, including Forge World, as I believe they offer a lot to Marine armies that they can't do at the moment. But irrespective of that, that was the format, and this is what I took. So it is a battalion and spearhead detachment, and it opens with a captain with power sword and stormbolter and the relic crusader's helm, and this guy is my warlord, and I gave him the storm of fire warlord trait. Then I have a lieutenant with a power sword and bolt pistol. Then I have 3 units of scouts with bolters for my troops choices. For elites, I have 3 aggressors with boltstorm gauntlets and fragstorm grenade, whatever the shits they are. Then I have 5 sternguard with stormbolters, another 5 sternguard with stormbolters. Heavy support is predator, predator, predator. All 3 with autocannons, sponsored heavy bolters, and hunter killer missiles. So there's 3 of those. The next in dedicated transports, I have 2 rhinos, each one with an additional stormbolter, so 2 stormbolters each. Next up is a spearhead detachment. It has a lieutenant with dual lightning claws. I don't know why I gave him dual lightning claws, because that's how the model was modeled, and I liked it. It looked cool. Next, I have a company ancient, and then for the heavy support choices in the spearhead, I have a thunderfire cannon, a devastator squad with 3 las cannons, 1 heavy bolter, and a cherub. Another devastator squad, 3 las cannons, 1 heavy bolter, and a cherub. And then I have 2 stalkers. So it's a gun line. There's no denying that or hiding it, which is not what I wanted to be playing. But with the breakup of my long-term relationship and the injury, it was all I could bring myself to paint, and it was actually a hard slog to get the stuff done that I got done. The list has a few perks over a conventional gun line. It has mass shooting in many different ranges with many different profiles. For example, a lot of the time you will see marine gun lines spamming one profile, like Hellblasters, las cannons, or assault cannons. With my list, I tried best to incorporate as many different profiles and mass shots of each. So on top of a hefty anti-tank, I packed 3 aggressors with 2 units of Stormbolter Sternguard and 2 double Stormbolter Rhinos. Combined, that totals in at 92 plus 66 Strength 4 shots for under 450 points. I thought that was a fucking bargain, and I wanted it. Further to that, I built in a few tech choices that worked wonders. I spent 4 CP at the start of every game for the additional relic, which was the Banner of the Emperor Ascendant on my Chapter Ancient, and then to make the 3 CP to turn my captain into a Chapter Master. This dude also had the Templars Relic Helm, giving him plus 3 inches to all abilities. So this guy had a 9-inch full reroll bubble, which is exactly what I needed to reach every unit in my gun line. So I did a couple of practice deployments, and this is something I encourage everybody to do. I've talked about in other podcasts. Go through every deployment map you're likely to use, which is all 6 in the basic rulebook, and then see how you would like to deploy. Ideally, you'll have one decent to largish piece of terrain in your deployment, and so you practice how you would deploy around that, with everything being able to draw several different lines of sight, and with everything being able to stay within those bubbles. And I realized if I was going to do this right, I needed that 9-inch bubble to be able to reach the Stalkers, the Preds, and the Devs, and plus the Thunderfire Cannon, and the everything else. And so this guy was a fucking bargain. He clocks in at 80 points. He clocks in at 80 fucking points with a power sword and a stormbolter. You can make him cheaper than that if you drop the stormbolter down to a bolt pistol, and drop the power sword down to a chainsword. And yeah, he's got a 9-inch full reroll bubble, and he's giving out Storm of Fire as well. This guy is amazing value. And the last one I want to talk about is the sleeper of this list, and I think a sleeper of the meta as well. The Stalkers. In the meta right now, we have this little thing called fucking Eldar everywhere, and especially Dark Eldar vehicles. These guys are pretty amazing. The Stalkers, they're pretty amazing. For 109 points, so under 110 points, they have a 6-shot auto cannon on a toughness 8 chassis. It's just crazy good value. They also have +1 to hit against things with the fly keyword, and become very, very effective against a shitload of the best units out there, like Riptides, Yovaras, all Eldar, most good Necron units. Crazy good. Damn good value. Alright, but enough of that. Onto the games. And I'll be doing my best to hit the high points of the games and anything really interesting that happened. This is being done with only minimal notes and my decent to good memory. I think I have a pretty good memory. So if anyone I played is out there and I stuff something up, my apologies. But I thought it better to fuck this up and fuck up the recollection of it than to stuff you around in our games and not finish due to taking notes. I think that's the better way for me to do it, and show more respect to my opponent by not making them beholden to how good the content I put out is. I'm doing it the other way around and showing more respect to my opponent. So hopefully that comes across. Okay, game 1. and I am up against Tyranids. Pretty good Nid list. He had Kronos detachments with minion units of Hormigons and 1 unit of Devil Gaunts, 2 Tyrants, 2 units of Zoanthropes, 2 max units of Hive Guard, and 2 Rupture Cannon Tyrannofexes. I knew right from the off I was pretty screwed if we just sat back there and shot at each other. He was going to get the better of that every time. There was enough terrain on the board that his Hive Guard were out of line of sight in his deployment zone during deployment. But the good thing about that was the only 2 pieces of line of sight blocking terrain were close to the line. So if he wanted them to be out of line of sight turn 1, he needed to deploy them close to the line, close to the deployment line. So he took the risk and placed them there rather than trying to place them out of range of my good shooting, which was all about 48 inches. He tried to put them out of line of sight instead, which is fine. I got the +1 and I managed to go first. And with my first turn, I managed to charge both Hive Guard squads with my scouts using Templar charge rerolls and CP, which pretty much decided the game. Like, I hate it when a game is decided turn 1, but I saw that opening and I had to take it. He left very minimal because of how close he had to deploy the line. He couldn't get a good amount of screens in front of the Hive Guard, and he knew I was getting the +1, so he made a calculated choice there. And had he gone first, would have been a very different game. But I deployed my scouts last because I needed to see where those Hive Guard were going to go. And then I was able to move and charge them. And I needed decent charges on everything. I think I needed like 8s and 9s, and I managed to get 2 of those in. And that was enough. His Tyrannofexes were both out of range of all my guns due to him not wanting to risk a full turn 1 kill shot on them, which probably would have killed both of them. So instead, I cleared both units of Zoanthropes in my first turn and most of his troops choices, and I realised at this point that I had mid-board pretty much cleared of all his options. We went back and forth, and I ended up taking a solid win. His Hive Guard got only 1 double volley off in the game, with me being able to tie them up with, I think, a couple of rhinos after the scouts died. And there was a diminished unit that double shot, so it was very manageable. The scouts won the day, though, in turn 1, and were easily the MVP. I consider myself very lucky there, though. His army was very, very good against mine, and in other circumstances, he probably could have cleaned me up pretty well. Okay, game 2. Opponent is Tau. He had 2 battalions, one of the Tau Sept and one of the Cecilia Sept. Both had units of strikes with a marker light in each one. So he had 6 units of strikes with a marker light, I believe, in each unit. He had 3 suit commanders, 2 of these being Cold Stars with fusions, and the other one being an Enforcer suit with a bunch of ions. He then had a Fireblade and an Ethereal. Now, the meat and potatoes of this army was 3 Riptides. 2 of them with Heavy Burst and SMS, and the other one with an Ion Cannon and SMS. And lastly, he had I think about 24 drones to soak up the wounds. Once again, I managed to go first. This game hinged on my ability to clear the drones turn 1, because as long as the drones were up, I could not kill the Riptides, who would tear me apart over time. One thing I did have going for me, that the majority of my good firepower against him was on T7 or T8 vehicles, which are quite resilient versus the heavy burst cannons, which meant the Ion Riptide was public enemy number 1, and he had to drop first turn. I used every shot I had to clear off about 16 of the drones before my big shots came down, the las cannons and the predators came down, and with my last 2 shots, I was able to kill off that Ion Riptide. He shot back and did significant damage with all his strength 5 shooting, but in the end, I was able to take a large win, wiping him on turn 6. It was a really great game, but my opponent said he made some mistakes. The first one being not having the Ion Riptide out of range of my Predators turn 1, and the second one was actually a bit of a funny moment. He flew over to kill one of my Predators with his Fusion Commander and to deny me kill shot. Because for the first time ever, I was able to get kill shot for two turns in a row, and that was pretty savage on him. He then spent 3 command points to do the Tau orbital bombardment thing, and that's where you draw a line 2 or 3d6 inches in length, pick up any point on the map, and then whatever is under the line takes a smite on a 4+. So he managed to do 3 mortal wounds to a dev squad with that, and I then took off 3 las cannons, used the banner, and with the banner shooting, I was able to kill that fusion commander before I could shoot and kill the pred, which gave me another turn of the kill shot, and that was a big reason why I was able to wipe him. Great guy though, and I did give him the chance to change his order of operations to shoot the fusions before he did the bombardment, but he was a fucking dude about it and stuck to his guns. I thought it would have been a bit savage of me to do that kind of a gotcha move on him, because I mean both both things are activated during the shooting phase. So had he have known about the banner, because I think he was actually unaware about that I had the 3-up banner, even though I declared it at the start of the game. And so I gave him the opportunity to do it differently, and he denied it. He said, "Nah, this is how I did it. I'm sticking with it." So, what a dude. Okay, game 3 opponent, Admech and Custodes. He had Call, a Dominus, 2 units of Rangers, 1 of Vanguard, 2 Dune Crawls with neutron lasers, 4 Castellan robots with all the Dakar, and then 3 Plasma Destroyer Cataphrons, and 3 Dawn Eagle Shield Captains. So straight up gunline versus gunline, and he went first, guys. And I think you see where this is going. Turn 1, I lost both Rhinos, all the Scouts except for 2 dudes, all the Devastators, a Stalker, and I had 1 wound remaining on a Pred. And I had to use a CP to keep that Pred alive, I believe, on a 5+. So, yeah, he was down to 1 wound, and then I failed my last 5+ for a -2 shot from one of the Castellan robots, and I re-rolled it and managed to get a 5 just to keep him alive. I shot back with kill shot, but my opponent rolled amazing. I didn't manage to take out all the robots. I left 1 left, which denied me a lot of points. It denied me the maxing out of my gangbusters for the ITC stuff. It denied me a kill point. It denied me a first strike on my it denied me like 4 or 5 points just by that guy surviving. He then put his shield captains right into my lines and cut me up to ribbons. Without the las cannons, I really struggled to deal with them. And if it wasn't for a Stalker exploding and taking 2 mortal wounds off one of them and then 3 wounds off another one, he would have wiped me turn 3. With all that told, though, I managed to survive until turn 6, but really it was decided turn 1. I lost close to 1,000 points turn 1. Both Rhinos, 13 out of 15 Scouts, all the Devastators, so there's a couple hundred points there, and a Stalker, and then, most of a Predator. So 10 wounds off an 11 wound Predator. So yeah, I lost almost half my army. Okay, so that was a huge loss. So I ended up getting wiped turn 6. Game 4. And so I'm going into day 2. I know I've dropped a game, and my wins were solid wins, but they weren't big wins, which I think if I wanted to podium after taking a loss, I needed all like kind of near max wins. So now I knew I probably wasn't in contention, which was a bit deflating for me because, I mean, the idea of going back-to-back at a tournament like this was really exciting, but I knew very unlikely with the list I was taking, so I wasn't delusional about that at least. Game 4. Opponent, Custodes. He had the regular complement of shield captains, he had 8 bikers in 2 units of 4, and then he had 3 units of Custodes Guard, a banner dude for the -1 to hit, and then a big unit of 8 wardens with the axes, and a Vindicare Assassin. Now, this was another great game. And my opponent managed to go first in this game, and that was due to his very small and elite army, but also due to his very small and elite army, I was able to place all my important stuff on the other side of the board to his bikers. So I had so many deployments, and I kept all my stuff out of their vehicles just so I could deploy all my shit before I put down any of my Devastators, any of my Preds, any of my Stalkers. So I saw his entire deployment, his entire army go down before I put down any of my actual meat and potatoes on my list. And this kind of decided the game. Because I was able to deploy all my good stuff away from him, it pretty much bought me an extra turn of shooting. And due to having that extra turn, I was able to kill off the Praetor bikes pretty quickly. And the double tapping Hellfire strat with the Cherub and the Heavy Bolter on the devs was incredible this game. I think I did about 9 mortal wounds with that stratagem alone over the 2 Cherubs. And they MVP'd this big time. Further to that, my Preds came up clutch and got 4, 5, or 6 shots on their autocannons every fucking turn, which I thought was incredible. And through dint of having him to make so many damage 3 saves, I was able to cut down heaps of these golden boys. My opponent's shield captains did connect, and he cut up my backfield really well, scoring heaps of points off the characters. But in the end, I was able to wipe him last turn. Sorry, I didn't wipe him because he had 1 unit of Custodes out of line of sight and a Vindicare Assassin I couldn't get to. But in the end, I did get a big win, and it was a good game. My opponent was another champion dude. Game 5, fucking Inari. He had Yvrain, a Farseer, a Warlock, 3 or 4 units of Rangers, a Wave Serpent, a unit of Dire Avengers, a max unit of 10 Dark Reapers, a max unit of 9 Shining Spears, and 3 Hemlocks. So this is a pretty strong list, guys. It's not. This list is no joke. So me and him were both sitting on 3 and 1 going into this, and had either of us won, we probably would have been cracking the. So whoever won would probably be cracking the top 20, even the top 10 with a big win, while the other person would probably go down quite a bit. So there's a bit on the line because I wanted to live up to what I did last year and do the best I could. I already felt satisfied though. Like walking into this event, I only wanted to get 3 wins, and I'd already had them walking into this game, so it was okay if I lost. I didn't want to though. And his list is actually pretty amazing versus mine for a lot of reasons. And I really needed to go first here, but I did the math and I knew how many characters I piled into my rhinos. He was going to get the +1. So I deployed everything and then the scouts last. I tried a bit of a cunning plan and used the scouts to get well within the 24-inch range of Yvrain and his Warlock, who had Quicken, as I needed to stop the Shining Spears from just first turn charging my whole army and it being game over. So the way I was going to do that was by using the Black Templar stratagem. So when you went to either Soul Burst them or Quicken them, I could stop it with the stratagem, and that was the whole cunning plan. On top of that, I measured out from where he deployed his Shining Spears, and they're going to move 22 inches because they're going to advance with Samhain, and I put my guys exactly 22 inches, and I walled it off. So he had to land on the other side of my scouts, and it stayed 1 inch away. So hopefully he could only move 19 to 20 inches instead of moving the full 22. And that was literally all I could fucking think of to stop this guy from just winning the game turn 1. And I was happy with it. It worked, but he was a bit savvy, and fucking he got so many tricks. And so after he got turn 1, and his Shining Spears moved those 20 inches with the Samhain strat, and then he used all his available shooting, so all his ranges, and I think the Wave Serpent and some other stuff, and he popped a unit of scouts, and then he Soul Burst on them and double moved anyway, man. So after all that work, all that planning, all that worrying, he just fucking did it anyway. And after shooting and killing a bunch of stuff, he charged a bunch of characters and then tagged 3 tanks. And after all the shooting and all the dust settled on turn 1, he neutered 70% of my army turn 1, either by being dead or being tagged by Shining Spears. So fucking balanced, guys. On top of that, he had the perfect piece of terrain for his Reapers and did the Dance of the Joyful Bastard, fire and fading, for 3 turns in a row, where he would come out, double shoot with Soul Burst on his Reapers and fire and fade, so I could not return fire. I did my absolute best to make a game of it and managed to kill everything he had bar the Reapers, 2 units of Rangers and some characters, but it was well and truly over. There was no coming back from that first turn deficit. I think I lost a Rhino, a Predator, and then I had another Predator, a Stalker, my Devastators, and my Aggressors all locked up at the top of turn 1. And so it was literally 70% of my army I didn't get to shoot. I'm proud that I was able to fight it back and make a game out of it, but I still got wiped. Okay, so that's my 5 games, guys. I went 3 and 2 with a pure Black Templars force, like exactly 100% Black Templars, and I managed to come 35th out of 90 odd players. So I'm not unhappy with the result considering the field and where I think my army sat in power level wise, and it wasn't really optimized for the missions. ITC missions, you need to be more dynamic than a pure gunline. Even though I think my gunline had many tools, it didn't have what I needed to compete against stuff like what I just played, like that Inari list. And in fact, on paper, if I look at all my opponents, I don't think I had an army stronger than any of my opponents, and most of them I think my army was far weaker. So to get 3 wins out of that lineup, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, now we are going to do my usual list review. So we're going to go unit by unit down the list, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on what I think the future of that unit is in my army going forward. First up, for those of you who are new to this process, I have a little thumbs up, thumbs down, and Zangief ruling. For those of you who are unaware what the Zangief thing is, it's my thumbs middle score, so it's my unsure whether this unit has much play or doesn't. If you have no idea why I called it that, you were probably too young and you're just not that cool. You're not the cool people I thought you were. You need to go watch the amazingly incredible Street Fighter live action movie, and then you'll know as much as I do, and you'll be a cool dude again. Okay, from the top, Captain with Power Sword, Stormbolter, and the Relic Crusader's helm. Fucking great. With the Relic Helm and the Chapter Master stratagem, this dude was amazing value for increasing the efficacy of my army. Thumbs up. No more to say. Lieutenants, both solid. The one I had with the dual lightning claw was an absolute waste, but that's what I modelled, and I wanted to stay WYSIWYG at all costs. So overall, thumbs up. They do what they say they do on the box. Scouts, pretty amazing. Won me the first game hands down. Were the MVP in that game. They're an unfluffy choice in a Templars army, I know, but essential to most, if not all, Space Marine playstyles. I've tried really hard to try and conjure up a Space Marines army that survives without scouts. I just fucking can't do it. So maybe one day I'll figure it out. But at the moment, I think they're kind of essential to every Space Marines list. At least for Black Templars. I mean, Raven Guard and Ultras and a couple of other things can really get around them, but I can't. Next time I take them, the scouts, I'm considering trying to trick them out with camos and maybe sniper rifles next time. But then the issue is I won't want to throw them to the wolves like I did this game. So this game, every game in this event, I was choosing them to try and tie shit up. After they denied the turn 2 by zoning off, if I had the opponent had deep strikers, I was using them to run up the board and try and tag shooting units. So overall, thumbs up, absolutely. Aggressors. Now, I'm actually pretty impressed with these dudes. They're surprisingly versatile with their great damage output and rate of fire, and being able to advance in fire too is pretty great. The platform itself, being T5 with 2 wounds, is kind of good also. So all around, I give these guys a thumbs up. And I use these guys more as a defensive tool in my army, so when people would rush in stuff like the Shining Spears, these guys wouldn't have to move because they'd be in their 18-inch range and they just fucking level everything. So they're pretty good for that role, I think. Next up, the 2 5-man Sternguard units with Stormbolters. They're about as good as I thought they were. It's disappointing for their cost how easily they are to remove these days. But I had these guys working around in the Rhinos, and with each little squad in their Rhino having 28 strength 4 shots, good mobility, they did their job of clearing objectives, which is what I brought them for. So thumbs up. Now next to the 3 Preds with autocannons, heavy bolters, and hunter killer missiles. So prior to this event, I'd only ever run these guys at one other tournament where they were utter fucking garbage because the field I played against was super skewed and I failed to get many first turns. These guys performed very well overall in this environment though, in this tournament, but they are too easy to neuter. And when you're investing around a quarter of your points, so these guys clock in around 500 points for the 3 of them, in a play, so in the whole play is the kill shot stratagem that you will only ever really get mileage out of on first turn if you go first. It's just not worth it. Don't get me wrong, I think they're actually good for what they do and the damage output is actually really impressive. They're just not good enough to justify their place in the army, considering how easy it is to remove their viability, to remove their job, to just stop them doing their job pretty much. So thumbs down. 2 Rhinos with additional Stormbolters. Good units, 74 points for something that people don't want to shoot at. They're mobile, they're fast, and they're annoying. The shooting is not insignificant, but it's hardly worth noticing compared to heaps of other things in the army. Now, these guys died in just about every single game that I played, and I'm actually happy about that. If they are getting shot while toting around my little Sternguard units, that's working towards my overall strategy for this army. The idea is for that combo to toe the line between threatening and ignorable. And if the opponent takes the bait, and if the opponent takes the bait, they are usually investing far, far more points than this combo is worth to remove it. So overall, pretty happy with the Rhinos. Thumbs up. Company Ancient. So every single game, I bought this guy the Relic Banner for the 3+ to shoot back upon death. And it was pretty amazing. This dude is likening to buying car insurance on a really, really nice car that you intend to thrash into the fucking ground. I comboed him with the devs to ensure I got mileage out of the investment that I put into the Devastators, and he did just that every single game. So thumbs up. Thunderfire Cannon. Still amazing, still worth it every game. Slowing down the enemy and sniping out units, camping objectives out of line of sight. The more I play this guy in ITC events, the more I am believing he is needed in every single list I take in 8th edition. Thumbs up. Devastators with 3 las cannons, 1 heavy bolter and a cherub. Baller. Way too easy to remove for their points, but the damage output with full rerolls to hit and rerolling once to wound make them super efficient, super efficient. The double shooting the cherub with the Hellfire strat was instrumental to winning the game against the Custodes, and honestly, it's just great use of the stratagem. So thumbs up. The Devastators impressed me. Unfortunately, they cost a shitload of points, and they're just like a Marine to fucking kill. But when you invest enough points in them, with the stratagems, the Relic Banner, and the full rerolls and stuff, they become really, really strong. Okay, lastly, my MVP unit, the 2 Stalkers I took. Damn, they are good for their points, guys. And damn, they paid out in every game. With everyone knowing that fly is the best keyword in the game, these guys become premium counters for the very, very little investment. They are hard to remove being T8, and they are just great. So I actually think these guys were the best thing I bought to this event. And they're so good in the meta at the moment. I heartily encourage all Marine players to give these guys a look in. Thumbs up. Okay, on to next section, which is Revelations and Future Direction. So during this event, I had several revelations. The first one being the really, really big one, and that is I will never be the player I want to be while playing a gun line. Gun lines, while powerful and amazing, don't offer the tactical flexibility that I think I need to bridge the gap between the power levels of lists. So that means if I'm going to be playing down in power against most of my opponents, I need to be playing more than one phase than a shooting phase, which is what the gun lines are. The only way to properly do this and to bridge this gap is in the movement phase. So the movement phase is the last true 100% you decide what happens phase in the game. Everything else has interplay between you and your opponent. Psychic phase, shooting phase, charge phase, combat phase. Movement is 100% up to me and my decision making. And so playing the movement phase is the most important thing to play. Now playing a gun line, you don't get that much. I tried to get a little bit into it with the 2 rhinos, the aggressors, and the scouts, but that's investing, 500 points, 600 points into that, whereas I want to do that the other way around. 600 points into backfield gunline stuff, 1,500 points into aggressive, moving around the board, dynamic units. So my 2 losses at this event were against other powerful shooting lists, and it was a case of who went first. At the end of turn 1, I was usually, in those 2 games, I was in an insurmountable deficit in efficacy at the end of turn 1. So what I need to do is add aggressive and add diversity to my lists, which is going against what Space Marines have going for them the most, and that's being their reroll bubbles. So the best thing that Space Marines have for them, it's not their stratagems, not their unit choices, it's not their chapter tactics, it's the damn reroll bubbles, because they're so cheap to get, so easy to use. But taking those tells you to play into a stable, passive gunline kind of, static gunline army. So you don't have to worry about staying within those bubbles and, being fucked with. So you protect those investments and protect that efficacy, those rerolls that are doubling down. Now, my new direction is going to be to try and focus on a much more well-rounded force with both aggressive and defensive elements. But stay tuned, those guys. I'm not giving anything away yet, but it's all on the go, and I'll be drip feeding in this new army concept to you guys over the next few episodes. On the whole, I think I played some very good 40k on this weekend, just gone, and I'm not giving up, and I'm going to be giving myself all the appropriate tools to win games now. And that's what I thought. Like, I didn't have the appropriate tools to take a hit like I would at turn 1 against those 2 shooting armies, and then still have any kind of way of winning that game. Like, both those games were well and truly decided. I'd need like a miracle to win that last game after those Shining Spears tore me a new one. But that's all part of the process. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. So still pretty upbeat, guys. Lastly, thanks everyone for your support and encouragement, guys. If you wish to contact me for list reviews, advice, questions, or just to drop in and say hello, gamingagainstthegrain1@gmail.com. Hit me up. So that is it for this episode. Unfortunately, I was not able to go back to back at Terracon, but I am just fine with that because I feel like I made some decent progress and cemented some concept into my head going forwards. So yeah, hopefully I was some help for the guys who wanted help. Hopefully I explained myself well and my games and how I did. Thank you to my 5 opponents. I didn't have a bad game. I had 5 great games. That's one thing I've learnt. When you're at the top tables playing for the event, games get pretty feisty. They get pretty tense. When you're in the middle and you don't give a fuck, geez, you have a good time. Like that last game when I was getting pumped. I knew I couldn't make a podium, but we were both playing for, getting a decent standing at the end of it. And we still had a great fucking time. Like, it was really enjoyable. Even though I got stomped, I didn't mind. So yeah, it's actually refreshing. It's quite refreshing to have some really, really just solid games against really good dudes. So thanks to all my opponents. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to make a podcast like this. It's brilliant, and I love it, and thank you all very much.